Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to MMA Unhinged. And as you can see, we're joined by Charles Joyner once again. Always a pleasure to be joined by Charles Joyner. It's always great, mate. Thank you very much. A lot to chat about. Scotland, Newcastle coming up against Yannick Bahati. Thank you very much, Charles. How are you?
Yeah, good. Like I say, always good to chat. Got a big wrestling session after this, so you caught me before. Probably if you caught me afterwards, I'll be a bit tired. So this is good timing.
That's got to be your favourite session, surely, wrestling, right?
Mondays are probably my favourite. We got striking in the morning, and then we got this wrestling session is normally the busiest as well. And I feel like everyone, because it's the start of the week, everyone's fresh, everyone pushes as well. So I normally enjoy it. It's a good graft.
I'm usually in here like TFT, usually on a Monday, and as you mentioned, there's loads of killers here on a Monday. So it's always good to see yourself in here as well, working that craft away. Yeah. Firstly, I'd like to talk about Scotland against Brandon Guest. Had a lot of amateur experience yourself. Came into this MMA game. Off that huge Muay Thai experience. Not much MMA experience. So this one, I felt like it was a great test against Brandon, who, as mentioned, had a lot of amateur experience. Yeah. Was it good for you to kind of get in there, 15 minutes of work, get the job done, get the victory? How did that feel?
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up perfect there. I think he had a massive amateur career, and he's been fighting MMA a lot longer than me. So I know he was having his debut, but he'd had double the fights I'd had in MMA. So I knew it was going to be tricky because he probably has a more well-rounded skill set if you look at it on paper. But also, I felt confident in myself. I think my striking matches up well with anyone. But the test is just to see whether I could defend the takedowns, if I got taken down, get back to my feet, and then how my gas tank would hold up. Because I'd never been 3 rounds at light heavyweight. So yeah, it was good. I feel like I ticked a lot of boxes. I showed that I can finish people in the first round in my other fights, and then this fight I showed that I can just, win pretty comfortably for 3 rounds. And when it's at my range and I can keep it at my range, it's not many people can hang with me. Yeah,
the way you're speaking about it there, it kind of feels like it proved a lot to yourself that night. Is that the kind of feeling that you went in there against a guy who's had a lot more experience? He's had a lot more experience than you in terms of MMA. He's had a lot more experience than you. Did it kind of prove a lot to yourself that night? As you talk about there, cardio, being able to go 3 rounds, and let's be said, the scorecards were 30-27. You dominated that fight. So did it kind of prove a lot to yourself that night? Yeah,
definitely. I left it with a lot of confidence. Just for all those things, like the gas tank. Because when I'd gone 3 rounds before at middleweight, I think I lost that fight because I just severely gassed out in the last round. So it was interesting to see whether it was, in part whether that was the weight cut or if it was like the wrestling. And there were a few wrestling and grappling exchanges, and I just felt fresh really. Like I felt pretty fresh the whole way through, and I felt like I could do damage on the feet. Was landing my jab well. I didn't just rely on finishing someone with a body shot. So yeah, I think it's just ticking a load of boxes, and then you can take a step up from there with that confidence and go, I'm ready for a bigger challenge now.
I still find it funny every time you mention middleweight and Charles Joyner fighting at middleweight. Absolutely ridiculous. If you haven't seen it, I suggest going back and look at some old Instagram photos.
Yeah.
How the hell I think I've asked this every time I see you. 6'8". How the fuck did you ever make middleweight?
I don't know, just stupid. Looking back on it, it's stupid, but I'm happy I did it because it was just I had to be be disciplined for 8 weeks, not put a foot wrong. I was not cheating on the diet. I was doing everything. So for those reasons, it was good. But I think just performance-wise, if I get them out of there in the first round, it's like, oh, I feel amazing. But then it was when it was pushing on past that point, I was feeling the weight cut, and it's not just the weight cut because the weight cuts were never. I mean, they were tough, the weight cuts, but they were never they weren't life-threatening. But it was more the lack of fuel I was able to get in camp, and then that limits how hard you can push yourself as well. So, I think light heavyweight was. I just feel much better at light heavyweight, and that was a good progression from there.
Yeah, definitely the right choice in my opinion. Even heavyweight in the future, but that's a long discussion for later down the line. Next task, Yannick Bahati. When you told me this, a few weeks ago, when you said Yannick Bahati, and I thought, wow. Immediately I thought, wow, this matchup is absolutely fantastic. From watching, Yannick from, quite a young age, and seeing what he's done, in MMA thus far. For the killers that he has in EFC, South Africa, Bellator, etc., Cage Warriors. When they put Yannick Bahati on the contract, What was like the initial, reaction? Was it a smile? Was it like a little bit of a grimace? Did it kind of bring a little bit of a excitement? It was, it was sort of, let's be said, it's the biggest name in your career so far. Did it kind of feel like, yes, this is it?
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest name in my MMA career so far, and I think those challenges they do excite you. I think if you're getting faced with a challenge and you're feeling, oh, I don't want to be in there, then maybe you're doing the wrong sport. But I feel myself and my team feels confident that we're gonna win this fight. So I think, when the name got given to us, it wasn't like a to and fro, and it was we're confident. Yes, that's a good fight. That's a good step up fight, and it's a good name before, to help you knock on the door of a UFC, for example, like that. He's fought Dricus du Plessis, who's the current champion. He's fought Melvin Manhoff. He's fought great names. He's been BAMMA world champion. He's been EFC world champion. So he's a proven winner. Like he's dangerous everywhere. But I feel like since the fight's been announced, it's been like, I thought people would be more backing his side, but I feel like people have been backing my side, being like, why does Yannick want that smoke? So it's his, because I've been active. I think when he had his last fight, which was on LFL, I hadn't even made my pro debut yet, and I've had five professional fights, and I've been growing and developing that whole time. So, and I'm on a roll. I'm confident. My skill set's improving all the time. So. Although he is dangerous and he's a challenge, it's like I'm dangerous and I'm a challenge. And I think when people get matched up with me, they'll be feeling the exact same thing. And I think it's that dread when they get matched up with me as well, of like, oh, this is gonna be a tricky night.
I guess that is the question. Why does Yannick Bahati kind of want this fight? Do you think he's looking at you rather? You're looking at him. You're thinking, all right, okay. He's a little bit on the older age. He's fought all these killers. The backstage of his career. But if you think he's looking at you thinking, all right, this guy's fresh. He's young. You're 27, I do believe. 4-1.
29.
27. 29. 4-1. Still very young in your MMA career. Do you think he's looking at you thinking, all right, this is a big ask for me, rather than you looking at him thinking, this is a great fight for me?
I think he probably wants a Cage Warriors title, and I think he probably thinks that, and he's right in thinking that a win against me, I think the winner of this gets offered the Cage Warriors title next year. And I think in his mind, he's like, well, I could have, he's inexperienced. We've actually trained together before, and when we trained together, I was only a kickboxer, so I had zero grappling. So in his mind, he's thinking, well, this is an easy win for me here. I'm just going to take him down and finish him because he's got no grappling. And then I get a Cage Warriors title shot, and I think that's what his goal is. So I can understand why he takes a fight and why he's going to be confident in himself, but probably the same reason Brandon Guest took the fight. He thought he'd be able to take me down and do whatever, and then he had a wake up call when I can just pop up to my feet or I can defend the takedown. So I think there's reasons for both of us to be confident, and I can see that, but I just think I'm on a roll now. I think I'm just too dangerous at the moment, and I'm improving all the time. Like even from the last fight, I'm improving. It's because I'm so fresh in my career, and I've already got this kickboxing skill set. My improvements can just be leaps and bounds between. Week for week, I feel like I'm improving because Fisher will show me another little detail, and I can add that in. Like there's so much room for me to grow that I'm making these big leaps in between fights. So, yeah.
I mean, essentially, I know you won't, but you don't have to train striking because you have that experience. It's just wrestling. That's basically all it is. Wrestling and grappling and nailing it down and kind of utilising that in a fight altogether. This is a fantastic fight, in my eyes. Fans' main event. This is what I'm looking forward to. I know we've got Harry Hardwick, and I think that speaks volume as well, because we've got Harry Hardwick, we've got Kennedy Freeman, we've got Justin Burlinson. But this is the one I feel like I'm looking forward to. And I think I've seen that with the fans as well. Because stylistically, it's an absolute mental matchup. And I feel like it will produce on the night. Is that how you feel as well? It's either going to be, how we've seen you in the past, round one knockout, or we go, decision. But I feel like this is going to be a really good back and forth. Do you kind of get that feeling that obviously Yannick, he's older, he's also going to give it, I feel like he's going to give it back and bring the fight.
Oh yeah, he's a veteran. He's had triple the amount of MMA fights that I've had, and he's been in there with like the best in the world, literally like Dricus du Plessis. So know he lost to him, but it still says something to be in there with him. But I think like you say, the reason it's a cool matchup is because it is two people at different stages of their career, and it's literally one of those. It's like, well, what's going to happen? People don't know what's. Like, I think I know what's going to happen, but people are. It's one of those, like, maybe the fight. My other two fights on Cage Rise, you go, okay, well, I know what's going to happen here, but this one, it's a level check. It's what is going to happen in this fight. It's like when a prospect meets the veteran, and you've got to see what. You're seeing what level the prospect's at, and you're seeing what the veteran's got left in the tank, and that's always exciting for people. I think those always make the best fights. So you either get the prospect doing, and you either like that stock continues to rise, or the veteran shows why they're a veteran. So let's go.
Nail on the head. And we'll talk about a veteran versus a prospect this weekend. But before we get to that, last words: Yannick Bahati versus Charles Joyner, November 23rd. Big test for yourself, big test for him as well. How does it go down?
I think first round's going to be tricky, but I think I break him by the second, and then people will be saying I'll make it look easy, but the first round will be tricky, and I think I've got to stay switched on. So it's only going to bring the best out of me, and I think when I've got to be switched on, and when I've got a dangerous person in front of me, that's what makes me the most dangerous. So I think second round finish. Back
to finishing ways. Yeah. I know the crowd went mental last time when you got that knee to the body. Superb stuff. I love watching that one back. Yeah. But this one, I feel like it's going to be a great showcase for yourself. Good for Yannick Bahati to kind of get himself back onto the scene a bit. This one, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you're watching this one. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Cage Warriors, Ian Dean, good job. Now, moving over, UFC 308 goes down this weekend. I saw you watching it before you came over here. Yeah. Ilia Topuria, obviously coming off a win against, unfortunately, your man, Alexander Volkanovski. Yeah. Talk to me about this weekend. We talked about veteran prospects. We're going to see what happens. I know Ilia Topuria currently is the champion, but if you look at him, he's still very young. Still very young in the career. There's still a lot to. We're still trying to find out a lot from him. What he's about. He's got Max Holloway, who's been there, done that, fought the best of the best, has that experience. How does this one go down in your eyes? I know you're a fighter of MMA, but I feel like you're a kind of a fan of MMA. You like watching these fights, so. I know you'll like to talk about this. How does this one go down?
I think watching it, before I watched the fight back, I was thinking that Topuria was just going to absolutely I was thinking he was going to knock out Holloway. But then just watching it again, I feel like the fight went a little bit different than I remembered it, as in the Volk and Topuria one. I think Volk was actually having quite a bit of success with his boxing as well, especially in the second round. And I felt the tide was changing a little bit. Like he was landing his jab, he bust up his nose a bit, and Topuria's head movement slowed down a little bit. And I think because Volk was landing some inside leg kicks as well. But so after watching that and just seeing Holloway's last performance with Gaethje, I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like there's a good chance that Holloway just pieces him up a bit. And then frustrates him, because I think Topuria's got all this confidence and this ego at the moment, and I think that could make him open up and make mistakes. And I just feel like Holloway's just a master at controlling that range and just not committing too much in his boxing and just landing the little short shots. So I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting either way. I think it's going to be such a good fight.
I like what you're thinking. I've also got the same pick. I think Max Holloway gets it done. We've never seen Max Holloway been finished, only by submission. We've never seen him starched. And I feel like that's the only route to victory for Ilia Topuria. Like what we've seen against Volkanovski, if he just puts his man out within a round or two, I think what we're going to see Max Holloway survive that early onslaught, do you want to call it, where he's going to be fresher. I think the third and the fourth and the fifth, we talked about, I feel like he's going to be worn down a little bit, and that's where we'll see Max Holloway just ramp up the pressure little by little. And I feel like the fifth round would be interesting. I think a very late stoppage, Max Holloway.
Points at the ground again. I think it'd be dangerous to point at the ground though with Topuria. I think he definitely could wear him down. We've never seen Topuria over 5 rounds either. We've seen him over 3 rounds, and he looks good. But I think the same with the. Hopefully Holloway's really focused on that excellent defense, because I think that's where Topuria does really well. It's because he combos in like 4s, and you see Volkanovski was leaning back with his chin up trying to get out of the way, which works when there's 1 and 2. But it was when he had him on the cage, through 1 and 2, made him lean out, and then followed up with the 3 and 4. That's what finished him. So hopefully Holloway's not going to make that. I know his chin's quite up in the air as well, so that could be risky. But I think it's going to be a good fight. It's going to be interesting either way.
If you're Max Holloway, what are you doing against Ilia Topuria? Against a guy who's a matador, comes forward, looking to potentially take your head off. What are you doing if you're Max Holloway?
Oh, just I think jabbing his leg off. Jabbing his leg off. No, don't do that. That would be the worst thing he could do. Jabbing his head off and probably Tony Ferguson. Yeah, he always do something like that. But throw sand in people's face. And I think using jabbing staying long, not committing too much at the start, jabbing his head off, and then chopping the calf as well. Because I think Volkanovski was having success with that, and just not exiting on a straight line and making sure when he does exit, his chin's tucked and he's using his arms as blocks and frames, which he can do well because he's always got his hands up and he's popping the shots out. So yeah, I think just being disciplined, which he is good at doing. He's good at being disciplined. I think the Gaethje performance was spot on for that. And except, I mean, you say the last 10 seconds wasn't disciplined, but it got that. It's probably the best moment that we've ever had in MMA from. Yeah.
Last minute knockout. But I'd like to talk about another one as well. Last few bits before I let you go. I know you're getting off training here. I don't know what the time is. But UFC announced its return to Sydney. Close to home, obviously Australia. Yeah. I think you're from Sydney as well. Yeah. So is that something you look at, you think like, I would like to be there? 3 years, 2 years? You don't know how quick your career is going to grow. A winner over Yannick could put you up to stardom. Then obviously it would be Clamp or Webb. Potentially next after that. Do you feel like maybe 2-3 years time you'd like to be on this, these Sydney cards, training out of Sunderland? You'd be travelling a far way to go home, but do you look at that and you feel like I'd love to be that one day? Yeah,
of course. But you say 2 and 3 years, but I'm looking at that next Sydney card in February and I'm going, I get a good win over Yannick here and I'm going to be home for Christmas. So if there's an opportunity to jump on that card, whether they match a light heavyweight and someone pulls out, then I can just extend my holiday and just jump on that card, because those are the opportunities you need to take. And I've been saying UFC in 2025 for me, so I've just been putting that out into the universe, and I feel like I'm pretty good at manifesting things. So I think in some way or the other, whether it's contender series, or I get a late call up on a show like that, or on a UK card or a European show over here, then why not? But I think 2 or 3 years, I think I'll be saying I'm headlining the Sydney cards in 2 or 3 years, let alone being on them. So, yeah.
I mean, I think there's some fantastic matchups in the 205 division for yourself. But as I mentioned earlier, we'll get to that as a later date. Yeah. Hopefully, when you get there, we'll be back here in the freezing cold TFT garage, and we'll talk about them fights. Charles, mate, an absolute pleasure. November 23rd. Make sure you follow Charles Joyner on Instagram. UFC Fight Pass. It's going to be great. I presume main card. It's got to be main card. I don't know what...
I don't know. I feel like I looked on the website and it looked like I was on the prelims again, but... I don't know.
No comment. But yeah, go watch Charles Joyner. UFC Fight Pass, November 23rd in Virtu Motors Arena in Newcastle. If you haven't got tickets, I think there's a few left. Make sure you go grab them. Watch it in the arena. I've watched him in the arena before. Spectacle. You'll love it. Charles, mate, an absolute pleasure. Always a great job. Sweet. Bosh.